Greetings, Lindley. Can you hear us? Can you tell us?
Yes, thanks. Hi, guys.
Great. We can hear you. All right. So we are unmuted. We are recording. We are on YouTube Live. I checked. We should be good to go. So take it away. Take it away.
All right, good afternoon. Welcome to Maryland Elementary School Go Team meeting. We'll follow the agenda as emailed to you and publicly noticed. I'd like to remind everyone that this is a meeting of the Go Team. Only the members of the team may participate in discussion. Any members of the public present are here to quietly observe. And for members of the Go Team, please identify yourself when you speak. I'm pleased to call this meeting of Maryland Education Elementary School Go Team to order at 2:46. Our first order of business is to call roll.
All right. Denise Bringsley,
Here.
Kristen Perez,
Here.
Addison Draper,
Here.
Ari Ram,
Here.
Kayla Dees,
Here.
Becky Hecox absent, Missy Snyder.
Here.
Lindley Terrace,
Here.
Scott Thorpe, present, Kelsey Boyajian.
Present.
All right.
Great.
That's fun.
Let's go to the first order of business is to approve the agenda. So that was emailed to you. Do we need to go over it? Everybody looked at it?
Yep.
Okay. Can we have a call to vote on that? Approve the
Motion to
agenda?
approve the agenda.
Okay, all in favor, say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Lindley? Okay. We'll go ahead and proceed with the agenda then.
A quick question, sorry to interrupt. I just see an email from Carolyn Barnett. She just sent it to all of us. She's looking to a direct link to the meeting. Sorry for the interruption.
I just emailed her the Zoom link.
Oh, okay.
Excellent, thank you. We will review and approve the minutes from our last meeting. The minutes have been provided to you. Are there any corrections? No. Okay, if there are no corrections, can we have a motion to approve the previous meeting's minutes?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Okay. Hearing nobody opposed, we're going to go ahead and approve the previous minutes. Okay, so now we can move on to our discussion items. Basically, the discussion items are all kind of outlined in the PowerPoint presentation that I sent to you earlier today.
Oh, you know what? It's because it's on Zoom. They said that person.
Okay.
Okay. Like,
Okay, I can also go up there and advance it for her.
oh.
I don't mind doing it.
Well, this is the receiver. You gotta put it right up.
Maybe this chair doesn't.
Have you-
Oh, yeah.
All right, so we're gonna focus on the slides and essentially at the end of the meeting today, we'll have reviewed all of the data that we have available to us. And then we'll use that data to inform us about the strategic plan and if it needs to be adjusted. Our strategic plan is the guide for the school for the work we're doing in the school. By monitoring the plan and ranking priorities, we can all work towards the common goals. Using the priorities in the strategic plan, the school leadership team developed a continuous improvement plan for the current school year. So here we are in section 4, utilizing current data. The Go team will review and possibly update the school strategic priorities and plan. So first, we're going to go through the current strategic plan, which we actually looked at these slides last meeting. So they should be somewhat familiar. At the top, we have the SMART goals. And these were developed as we talked about last time, at the end of last year. And so, I think that might be like the phrasing of these SMART goals might be something we want to look at this time. As we're kind of reviewing the data and seeing where we currently are at. You know, you guys know we lost some students when the redistricting occurred. And so some of these may need to be rephrased to kind of really better reflect our current population as we go through the data today. And then in that second section where it says strategic priorities and initiatives, in that middle column, it has our school strategic priorities, and then in the right-hand side, our school strategies to kind of implement them. And so this is what we'll be working on today. This is how we ranked it last year. And number one was use the data to inform instruction. And then I'm just going to read the first three. Create collaborative school culture that embraces diverse families that comprise the MLE community. Prioritize students' social and emotional growth as a means to ensuring future success. And so we basically also have an opportunity to reorganize where our priorities are. I'm gonna let Denise go through the data. I'm gonna hand over this quicker to you. She's gonna go through, and you probably already looked at the slides that were sent out, kind of the data that was missing last time, and in addition to a few other things that came available.
Yeah. It's a good little work. Okay. So this is largely going to be a presentation of math data. As you remember, it was embargoed at our last meeting. I did throw a couple of additional ELA points in there, just things that we didn't discuss previously. And I did put them all on slideshows so that we could capture it that way. Even though APS Graphs is great, going through it was, I think, a little bit, it just took a little bit of extra time. So I've got some screen grabs here. This is evidence of our milestones achievement versus challenge. And I'll stand up so I can show you. So basically the y-axis here, this is the percentage of the number of students who were scoring proficient or higher overall, or it's the normal curve equivalent, it's the NCEs. And then this is the challenge index, which is a statistic that captures all of the potential challenges we could face in a school. Primarily the percentage of students who are on free or reduced lunch, the percentage of students who are transient, and just various barriers that exist go into creating that challenge index. As you'll see, we are on the lower end of the challenge index with a lot of our cluster schools, and we are above this line. And that's the goal, is you want to be above the line, which is the, I guess, the average of the difference between a challenge and the NCE score. So happy that we're above the line, and happy that we are doing better than we would be expected to be doing, because what we would be expected to do is where that one is. All right, so this is the milestones achievement in grades 3rd, 4th, and 5th. This is all APS schools, well, as many as I could put on the page. And this is the percentage of students who scored in the beginning, which is red, developing is yellow, proficient is the light green, and distinguished is dark green in each of those performance bands. This is the percentage of children that perform there, combined, all grade levels. So Lynn is at the top. We have a very high percentage of students who are proficient and distinguished, and a very small number of children who were beginning and developing. So if you wanted to disaggregate that a little bit, this is 3rd grade only. So you can see the percentages there. All of our grades are pretty similar. On math achievement, 4th grade only. Something to celebrate in 4th grade. Last year, we didn't have any students in 4th grade score beginning. So all of our students in 4th grade math last year got developing and above. Developing is like quasi on grade level. It says that you're ready to learn on grade level, but you haven't necessarily mastered the skills of that grade level. So our goal is proficiency, but developing is better than beginning. So we'll take that, right? And then in 5th grade, we had a very high percentage of students get distinguished. and a smaller number of kiddos. I mean, 3%, I think that represents like one student, right? One student got beginning, one student got developing, and everybody else got proficient in above.
Can you just
Yeah,
go
of
back
course.
to the fourth grade one again?
Yeah.
It's like 10% in yellow, and then you go to fifth grade and it's kind of 6% is below proficient.
Yeah.
Which I think is important to realize whenever you look at the phrasing of our strategic goals.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like how many are proficient and above. It's like, it's good to celebrate nobody's in the red zone, but also that total percentage.
Yeah, we
Below the
definitely-
gray zone.
Yeah.
Is really where we're also.
Absolutely. We always want to move kids to the next performance band, right? So if the student's performing and developing, our goal is to get them proficient. If a student's performing in beginning, our goal is to get them into developing, and that could be a multi-year process. And that's why I like this graph, because you can kind of see the progression of how students, you know, are mastering content through third, fourth, and then fifth grade at Mary Lynn. So this is our third grade ELA scores, which kind of just track increasing each year. Obviously, I mean, the standards and skills that kids learn in math and ELA in third versus fourth versus fifth grade, they're not crazily different, right? There are certain skills that don't overlap, but there is a lot of overlap. So this just shows that each year we have an opportunity to kind of catch somebody up if they weren't performing where we wanted them to the year before. So increase year over from third to fifth in ELA, as well as math. And then science, only fifth graders take that, but we had really great science performance as well.
Could we get data on, sorry, raising my hands and everything. Could we get data on how like the individual, like obviously those fifth graders have just aged out. Like on how like each year group is
Like the
progressing?
cohort, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, there is a cohort view in APS graphs. I did not put any slides in here.
Okay.
But remind me, I can definitely add some slides at our next meeting about the cohort performance, because that is also important to look at, right? When you're thinking about the same exact kids. And one thing that does capture that is the SGP.
Okay.
So the SGP is based on specific students. So our fifth grade SGP score is based on that kid's growth from third to fourth to fifth. So SGPs kind of capture that, but there is a cohort view I can pull up at our next meeting. So this is going to the subgroup performance, which is really important, especially for us at Mary Lynn. We want to make sure that we are meeting the needs of all of our diverse learners. So this is the ethnicity subgroup performance, and this shows 02, 03, 04. Really proud of the growth that we've seen in the Black and non-Hispanic subgroup in math, and you'll see that in a moment in ELA as well. Some work to do here. There was a little drop. Once again, like you were talking about the cohort, this isn't the same kids necessarily, depending on if they moved or if kiddo, you know. So, and it is a small number of kids at Mary Lynn that we have in each of these subgroups. So, I mean, this is just really, really phenomenal right there. But once again, we haven't looked at the names of the individual students, so we have, you know, this doesn't capture necessarily if there's overlap. The ELA subgroup performance, also excellent growth among the Black, non-Hispanic and Hispanic subgroups. Had a drop here with our multiracial students, and this data, this aggregate data is great to look at, but what we do from an instructional standpoint with this data is right now, we're just talking about, you know, the group, but what we do is we look at who are these kids, right? And that's something we talk about here, but instructionally, we talk about who are these kids, you know, who has potentially not grown enough or dropped a little bit or only grown a tiny bit. So that's the conversations we have and just study about the advice.
Is there something that we need to be considering when it gets time to say, like, why are the math and the ELA scores not matching up?
That's
You
a
know,
great
why-
point.
Is it 100%?
Yeah.
And then it drops down to 70 something.
Yeah, and that was something that we're talking about, or we're trying to include in our SIP. Is, you know, especially with students who are performing in the distinguished domain. If you can be distinguished in math, you should be distinguished in ELA, right? So that's kind of a goal for us, is to have a little bit more like equity there around, like, if you're performing at the tippity top in ELA, you should be able to do the same with that. So this is the SWD subgroup performance. So steady growth among students who are not SWD. A drop here 2 years ago, but definitely some great improvement here from last year to this year. on students with SWD is students with disabilities. So this is students who have an IEP. So we're proud of this growth from last year, this year in math achievement. Also had a great, and this is what I'm talking about, right? If we have 50% of our kids who are proficient and above SWD in math, I'm glad that we have 50% who are proficient and above in ELA as well, right? That makes sense. That's what we want to see.
I would just say like, there are gonna be like, there's gonna be kids that are good at one thing and not the other, like,
Sure.
and have strengths and weaknesses.
Absolutely.
But I think looking at the aggregate data.
Yeah.
Like, that's where like, you wanna put the focus, like, cause it shouldn't be like across the board within the subgroup.
Mhm.
Like we're doing better at one than not the other, but like, obviously, there's gonna be a kid who's just like I was that kid.
Yeah.
Who's good at math and not good at like. Like,
Yeah, same, and we definitely do, and there is some nuance, right?
Yeah.
Like a kid could be really high proficient and like in one and then distinguished in the other. But what we definitely don't want to see is like a big separation, because oftentimes if there's a big separation, like a kid is barely scraping by in math, but is like excelling in ELA, that could be indicative of a learning disability, right? So, but that's a really big gap, like definitely small gaps or two.
well, and on the aggregate too, like, you
Sure.
wanna make sure like our. Teaching standards on both, or like we're putting the right focus on the right things,
Yeah.
like, so that,
Absolutely.
I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
one more question on that. So in the previous split we did with ethnicity,
Mhm.
it would involve both students with SWD and not. So this data necessarily is not showing any intersectionality of.
No, this is not, yeah, good question. All right, so this is those SGPs I was talking about, the student growth percentiles, which tell us how our students performed, or I really should say how our students grew in comparison to their like peers. So you can see here in math, 23% of our students were in the 1 to 34 SGP category. So that means these students performed better than or the same as 34% or fewer of the rest of their peers. 37% were typical, and then 40% is high. 77% met their growth target, is what we would say, the green indicators. These students, we would say, did not meet their growth target, which is something that we look at on a drill down basis with which students didn't grow or did grow, and what they just totally looking at their whole data profile to make a plan so that when they take the assessment next go around, they show growth. And I talked about that in SIP too, which we'll go over. This is our ELA SGPs. Actually super similar. You can see 23%, or I guess it was 77% had typical or high growth. Here, this is 70% had typical or high growth in ELA. 30% would have been categorized as low. I'm going to get to kind of how we're diagnosing that and what we're doing to really meet the needs of those 30%, that 30% of kids. So we'll talk more about SGPs when we get to this SIP, but that's kind of the overall. Yeah.
One question. So I was looking through the slides. I didn't see any data. Like, is there a data on what's the overlap between the 30% in math and the 30%, or say 23% in math and the 30% in ELA? Like, are there like,
is it the same kids?
That's a good question.
and if so, like, those are like, well, if they're unrelated, then that's great. Like
Yeah.
that's easier to handle than
That's
unless you're already looking at it. I don't know.
You know, I can't say that we've necessarily looked at them together. Definitely like Miss Fuller and our literacy instructional coach works with our, his third, fourth, and fifth grade are departmentalized, right? So
Yeah.
like our ELA teachers just teach ELA and our math teachers just teach math. So at the planning table and the data analysis table, our literacy instructional coach works with our literacy teachers and they're diagnosing, identifying students on the literacy end. And then the math team is kind of doing the same work separately. So that's a great question, coming together and comparing.
Whereas with
notes.
kindergarten, like I
Yeah.
think kindergarten, it's easy for me to look and see, oh yeah, this, I would be able to easily
Because
identify because I'm teaching all the
All the
subjects.
subjects,
I mean,
but
Yeah.
high overlap is concerning.
absolutely, yeah. Well, and that could be a conversation even to lift to the parents, right? During parent teacher
Mhm.
conferences, it's like, listen,
Yeah.
you know, we had a situation where over the past year, you know, you've had low growth in both ELA and math. Maybe we need to take a deeper look into some targeted intervention, so maybe some wraparound services even that might be needed. So really good point. It's something that I'll bring to the team.
And it's like 30 kids, right? Like, oh no, wait, am I doing the math? Oh no, to stick 40 to 60 kids.
Yeah, so 23% of 179. So it's only fourth and fifth graders get SGP.
Yeah.
Because it's just third to fourth and fourth to fifth. So yeah, absolutely. Very, very good point. And we'll talk about more why it's potential. So, and I guess we'll just kind of like touch on it here, but this growth is based on the milestones assessment, right? Which is grade level content standards. It's a criterion referenced assessment, right? Whereas the MAP assessment, which we use a lot to get data about, instructional planning, is computer adaptive, right? They also get an SGP with MAP. The thing is with MAP, since it's adaptive, it can adapt
All the way up.
above your grade level, right? So if we have students who are really learning new skills, but they're only learning them at the surface level, but like thinking math, they're computationally able to like divide big numbers, work with decimals, like do things that go beyond fifth grade. That might help them have a really high SGP on MAP, but it's not going to have them demonstrate high growth on milestones because milestones stops at fifth grade. Does that make sense? So something that we're doing, speaking of SGPs, is specifically in fourth and fifth grade, comparing a student's MAP SGP to their milestones SGP and seeing if there's difference there, right? Because you could have a student who seems to be performing in like seventh or eighth grade on MAP, but then maybe had a low SGP. That's indicative of them not going deep enough in that fifth grade content to have like conceptual mastery, if that makes sense. So just all things to think about.
Well, this is what we're
Okay.
doing right now is discussion. So do you guys have any more questions? I think that the next thing that we're gonna go through is the actual plan.
Oh, yeah.
And so do you have any questions about the data leading up into the plan?
And I will say, like, as a fifth grade teacher, we do informally talk about that, what your issue is that you're discussing, the low growth across subjects. I know, like, with my partner teacher, we talk about that all the time. My math counterpart, I teach ELA. So at the end of the year, it usually is pretty consistent.
Yeah.
Like the ones that made twos on the milestones made a 2 in math, so a lot of times we see that that parallel, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, I mean, I
So it's
think,
something we talk about a
Yeah.
lot.
absolutely. I mean, I think in the previous meeting also, we also discussed, right, like if anybody's bad at ELA, they're gonna be bad at math to some extent.
To some extent, for sure.
Because most of the questions are reading
Written
questions.
question.
Yeah.
And then
very
the
literacy
comprehension,
heavy.
because your ELA if your
Mhm.
comprehension is not where it needs to be, then it does affect.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is this SIP, which is continuous improvement plan, is a very large Excel workbook that has lots of sheets. This is the initial sheet. The initial work is developing our needs assessment. So we list our strengths and our challenges. Strengths, we just discussed basically our data profile from end of grade. And then our challenges, these are things that we noticed during our like leadership team data analysis. The average math SGP for Black students was lower than the overall school, the school overall. So thinking about those student growth percentiles. The achievement might have grown, right? Because you saw that upward trajectory on the achievement. That's just how well they did. The growth piece is what was lacking for that subgroup. Also, the average SGPs for fourth graders were lower than that of fifth graders in both ELA and math. And then SWD students, so students with disabilities, accounted for half of the beginning scores that we had for Maryland. We didn't have many, we only had 12 beginning scores from third, fourth, and fifth grade combined, but half of those were from students with disabilities, right? And that doesn't track with the percentage of that demographic in our student population. If 50% of our student population was SWD, and that 50% makes sense, but we're much lower, 8 to 10, maybe not even 10, like 6 to 8% students with disabilities. So we would want to see 6 to 8% of the students score it. So want to decrease that.
Do we have a breakdown on like what like going with this challenge, like how many of our students are Black?
Yes, there's absolutely data on that. And it's different depending on, so a subgroup is 15 students. We have a Black or African American subgroup if you count third, fourth, and fifth grade combined, but we don't have a single grade subgroup. So yeah, third, fourth, and fifth grade, none of those grades independently have 15 or more children who identify as Black or African. So
Same
you
with
have,
Latin American too, right?
same with, we don't
Yeah.
have any
And Asian
subgroup.
as well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all of the, yeah.
We don't have we don't have any subgroups that meet that
Like by
15
grade.
number,
Yeah.
yeah, per grade. And all of our subgroup data has to be combined for third, fourth, and fifth. Because of our demographic. So overarching needs were defined by considering our strengths and challenges. So our needs in literacy are that our writing domain scores were comparatively lower than our informational and opinion scores, which could potentially be leading to the differences in SWD students getting beginning in ELA. Our numeracy needs was the lack of growth in fourth grade compared to fifth grade, but very high achievement, right? We're talking about kids who are achieving very well. But we want to just see higher SGPs. And then once again, student scores in math should mimic those in ALA, right? You want to see some consistency. And then whole child intervention, so just kind of like overall, what I've been seeing is just an increase in anxiety, lower self-esteem, lack of resilience, with our kiddos kind of coming off of the craziness of COVID-19. So we have our problem statements, which I'm not going to go through because they basically are mirrored here with our root cause. So our root cause in literacy is we prioritize teaching early literacy, phonics, and reading comprehension skills instead of writing. Doesn't mean we're not teaching writing, right? But I think that the other components of a whole literacy curriculum get a lot of face time, specifically in the lower grades. And so that's why one of our focuses this year is writing across the curriculum. And we'll continue to push that. So for numeracy, our root cause is what I was just talking about, right? Using math as the first line of attack for data analysis and differentiation. But for a lot of kids, that math data actually is asking you to go above grade level, and that kid might still have some work to do on their grade level standards. Like I said, it's really all about like the depth of understanding and not just like how much you understand. And then for whole child, just talking about the potentially limited social group interaction, move toward more screens, social media. Students are still reacclimating themselves to social experiences. So these are overarching needs, which I've basically just covered, which lead to our SMART goals. So for literacy, our goal is by May 2025, the percentage of students in grades 3 through 5 scoring a 3 or above on the Georgia Milestones ELA, trait 1. So because you know, we achieved really high at Maryland, right? A lot of schools are like, we just want to get 50% of our kids proficient, right? Those type of goals aren't needed, right, at Maryland because we have so many kids performing. So we really have to drill down and get really specific about where we want to grow. And I think that also helps for us to focus what we're doing to grow that indicator. So we're growing that trait 1, which is around idea development, organization, and coherence. 6%. So 59% of our students got a 3 or above last year. Overall, this is third, fourth, and fifth grade. We want to get that to 65. And in numeracy, digging into the patterning and algebraic reasoning domain. Last year, the focus was on the geometry domain, and we saw gains in geometry. So shifting that to patterning and algebraic reasoning, which was the lowest performing domain, but still very high performing, right, compared to most other schools in brilliancy. And then we are using math growth goals to help empower students and give them agency over their growth. And hopefully that will help develop a little bit more resilience, self-reflection, and just ownership of that for what we have going on.
Is there time for a question here?
Yeah.
So all these goals are from May 2025. which means there needs to be an assessment before that. So is
So
there,
it's based on the milestone assessment.
okay, so there's only one, but there's not multiple assessments, there's only one assessment between now and the date, target date, or are there multiple?
So we have the MAP assessment here coming up after Thanksgiving break. But and we will track data on the MAP assessment. We can track students' growth on the algebraic reasoning domain. Gonna be a little bit harder to track the writing domain on MAP because they don't have to actually write. However, we do have the right score, which is a mimic assessment that looks and feels exactly like the Georgia milestones. The right score will be taken here once in the fall and then again in the spring. So that data.
Now, we did 3 administrations in the past, but they are all different. So there's one that's informational or opinion, one that's narrative,
Narrative.
and then one that's like just a mixture of constructive.
The
versus-
reading.
Yeah,
One,
yeah,
yes.
with like 40 questions. So
Right.
what would be helpful would be taking the right score that we are about to take right before Thanksgiving. That'll be
at
informational
grade one.
opinion
Mhm.
and using that to compare with the milestone scores at the end of the year.
Yeah,
Or from the end of the year this past year.
also.
Like the spring, the 4th grade, if I'm a 5th grade teacher, 4th grade spring milestone scores, comparing that
The right.
to the right scores.
So these are basically our action steps around how we are addressing these goals throughout the school year. Creating language standard aligned mini lessons that are embedded into reading lesson plans, so you can connect reading to writing, like I already said, writing across the curriculum. And common planning for special education teachers and general education teachers, so that special education teachers are on the same page with the content being being provided by those general education teachers. And then our numeracy SMART goal action steps, explicitly teaching patterning and algebraic reasoning, spiraling those objectives. So, as opposed to having like a whole lesson on patterning and algebraic reasoning, just using, in like school language, you call it like a do now, or like something you do right at the beginning of the lesson, to activate your brain, and just spiraling those concepts in. Also, I don't know if you've seen the school-wide whiteboard surfaces. Those are tools that are part of a instructional framework called Building and Thinking Classroom. So having whiteboards up so students can show their thinking and have their reasoning displayed so other kids can see is also a way to enhance that domain, because patterning and algebraic reasoning shows up in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade on the milestones.
How do you integrate, these action steps with these newer like PBL and STEAM overarching, whatever you call it for our cluster?
Yeah.
Like, how do you say, okay, we want to focus on going deeper in the content and having a better breadth? Do you use these action steps and try to integrate like that map thinking with their PBL?
Yeah.
I incorporate it. I go through the curriculum, look at the data, and incorporate specific skills into the lesson itself, depending on what it is, or like in a challenge before the lesson. Like there have been in kindergarten, 1st grade, where we've specifically focused on multiplication, for instance, because what that does is that provides the scaffolding that they need with the skills that they've already mastered. And so that helps with, and coming from a gifted background, one of the things I've focused on as well is that growth component, because it's very difficult to have a gifted child show growth on any type of test that we, as we know. So taking that and incorporating it all into one big picture as far as STEAM curriculum goes is something that I'm intentional about. And, each and every lesson, what I'll do is look at the curriculum, look at, the specific data that we looked at either here or meetings, and then, intentionally focus on that in a lesson, whether it's in engineering or, science or whatever. But it's, luckily I have that leeway to really be able to customize it for our group of kids to help to push them and scaffold them and move them on. So in STEAM, that's specifically what I'm doing.
Yeah, because you know, it like engages your brain differently when you're doing a worksheet of multiplication versus doing like an engineering project, but then you have to write an informational piece about making instruction manual about it, you know, it's like a different way to use the information.
Well, and that's one of the reasons why they have to bring their STEAM journal to every single class, because at the end of each, whatever it is, there's a ton of different things we do. They still either write down their observations, they always draw a diagram, they understand what a good scientist does with their journal as far as like, there's a picture here and an error there, and this is why that happened, and this is what this should look like, but it actually looked like this, and you know, that kind of thing. So they're getting practice and understanding, you know, the steps to do that, and it's not second nature yet, but it will.
Right.
I really like the like fourth grade, like long-term science project they're doing right now, because it's like, and you know, like you have to work through all the steps sort of thing. I do have a question, so I know like we have GATE, obviously, and there's the change in that procedure, and which fine, like great, and then we have IEPs and like special instruction programs as well, but within a general classroom, like to what extent is there freedom for the teachers to like be like, you know what, like you're gonna work on this instead? Or like you're gonna do something, like you've already figured this out,
Yeah.
like I want you to be doing more,
You
like.
speak on differentiation?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's differentiation. Yeah.
Differentiation.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that is really like. As both somebody who's been a student for a long time, and then like
Yeah,
also
right.
as it's like, like. Kids that get bored are bored.
Yeah.
And kids that are or like are frustrated get frustrated.
Yeah.
And so like, just, I wanna make sure that that is part of our like curriculum goals, is to be like identifying, like, and also. Super hard for the teachers, just to be clear, like, because you have to teach everybody, but like. I feel like that just needs to be part of our plan, is that like, we're going to try to identify people and make sure they're getting the work that they need.
Absolutely.
So really.
And that was
like
our
a
teacher key
behind
focus
those
last year.
Yeah, exactly.
Differentiation was our teachers, our teacher focus all last year, and so we just kind of came off the stage of doing that last year. So, you know, we're just following. But our teachers are absolute pros when it comes to.
Awesome.
Yeah.
No, I
I'm not saying that just because they're my friends and I teach with them and work with them and we're at the best school. It is a fact, like they have it down to a science.
Yeah.
And I said this,
Insanely
his mother has like been a parapro for 35 years, so like, I'm like, I get it.
It's not easy though.
Yeah, you're right. It's, you know, we definitely talk about these subgroups all the time, you know, and there's kids who are in the classrooms who maybe don't identify in any of those subgroups,
Yeah.
and they need differentiation. So that's definitely a focus, is differentiation happens for all students.
We call them the
No matter-
bubble kids.
Bubble kids
Yeah.
would be the kids who are kind of like on the cusp of getting distinguished, or on the cusp of getting proficient. I was gonna say, oh yeah, you were talking about the connection with the PBLs, right? And then thinking about writing, right? Informational writing is key to being able to use your resources and track your thinking. And so definitely thinking like interdisciplinarily about how we can incorporate writing into STEAM. And you know, increase our writing scores that way. So it's very much so intertwined.
Yeah, a bit like the creative writing is too, right? Because you can make lyrics to songs. With patterns and rhythms, and so, yeah, it all is interconnected. But sometimes, like when you're creating goals and action steps, it's hard to like put it all together. You can't write it all.
And then full child intervention, just using those goal setting roadmaps for teachers to be their conversations with students around setting goals, and you know, what we do if we meet them, what we do if we don't meet them, and how to kind of take ownership of your learning. And then we also have our full child intervention team, which is a team that's like razor focused on individual student needs. So we meet weekly and discuss students who might have specific needs, whether it's academically, behaviorally, social, emotionally, in life in general. So that's another support that we have in place for students.
I would like maybe not for this meeting, in fact, like affirmatively not for this meeting, but I do think at some point it would be nice to get like, and obviously you can't report on specific kids, but to get like a report from the counselors of sort of what they're seeing in the post-COVID, like comeback of like. If there been an uptick in like behavioral issues or discussions or things, like what are they worried about or need to talk about? That we could address, like, as we come back into, well. Semi-normalcy, I guess, at least since, but.
Okay. Right.
But,
Well, Ms. Hecox, who usually would be with us, is the school counselor.
okay,
She, interestingly enough, is at a school counseling conference this week, and she actually is presenting at the conference, so she will come back, I'm sure, with lots of details around school counseling and the environment, you know, that our kids are in, and then how it's been affecting them, so I think that's great. We
no, I
definitely
think it's put it on the agenda for like.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
needs to-
She can definitely give us an overview.
Yeah, I think especially because your whole child goals, they're all so intertwined with the pandemic and the rise of the screen. And then when they came back, there was no like going away from the screens at that point, and that causes all the anxiety. And, you know, just strategies of how the school like balances the
Oh, yeah.
needs of having the screens, but you have to have them versus none.
And maybe like incorporating more of a SEL component in it, because I think, because just when I was reading, because it mentioned anxiety and all those things, but then the goal really spoke on, diverted back to like the math and reading scores. And so I think that's probably part of the missing piece, the SEL.
For the second set lesson completion.
Something
Maybe think
that,
about like the idea behind setting goals, right, is so
Yeah.
that students can feel proud, right?
Autonomy.
Yeah, feel proud and like hopefully, you know, grow their self-confidence if they see, oh, I had a goal of 3 points and I met it, right? But I think that SEL is really important.
yeah.
Okay.
One small technical question on that, like, if I remember correctly, previous meeting, you mentioned we are moving away from the BASC scores or something.
That's, yeah.
It's still there, or
It
is
just
it?
needs to be deleted.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Never mind.
That needs to be, that was
You know
leftover
what,
from
though?
last year.
Oh, yeah.
I wonder if that may have been the whole, that's the SEL.
It is the SEL piece,
That's
right?
it, so that probably, yeah. That's probably not probably when it was, I know I wasn't a part of the group last year, but it probably wasn't accounting for the fact that FAST would be removed.
Yeah, that's why.
Yeah,
Okay, yes.
it makes sense.
Okay, so are all set goals reflected in our strategic plan priorities? And so, even though we talked about maybe needing to rephrase some of those priorities, I'm gonna have to go back to the other slide so that you guys can actually read them again. Gonna do it like the really annoying way, so I can accidentally screw something up here. So. These are our strategic priorities here. So we want to make sure that the SIP is aligning with these priorities. So use data to inform instruction. Adhere to the scope and sequence of the Georgia Standard of Excellence and supplement with other resources. Create collaborative school culture that embraces diverse families that comprise an elite community. Build teacher capability to meet the diverse social, emotional, and academic needs of the students. Provide unique learning opportunities to cultivate students' curiosity of learning. Prioritize students' social and emotional growth as a means of ensuring future success. Equitably align school resources with MLE mission and vision. Provide an environment that retains, empowers, motivates, and inspires teachers to utilize their individual strengths. So there's like a lot of content. I guess, is there anything glaringly obvious that is not being reflected here in our priorities? I think our SIP really focuses on using like the tests to monitor whether or not we're meeting our goals. I'm just gonna go back.
Is there something that we can add about growth? That's what I feel like is missing, right? From the strategic plan.
I had another question about, like, this might be more related to data, but we are in doing more PBL and STEAM related education and instruction. Is there a way to quantify the effect of this new move? And if so, or do we have a plan to quantify that? And if,
Good question.
like, how do they,
Maybe science GMAT scores, which were really awesome.
I know. You're not gonna get, I mean, how much?
However, for the question that, because you're really trying
Based
to
on
see,
growth of-
you're trying to see if there's a way to assess that the way that we're integrating is actually productive for the students and their growth.
For the science,
Yeah.
I could see it for the teaching them how to think portion of it, as far as like the engineering design process, teaching them how to critically go through
Right.
steps on their own when they have their own projects and, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's where it might be a little bit trickier because,
absolutely.
you know,
Full data, like.
yeah.
like teaching them a
Yeah.
new way of thinking
Yeah.
based on what they're gonna need to do with the future. That's not
Oh,
happening
that's
now.
interesting. I
Yeah.
know, it's changed anyway so much since then.
You go ahead.
No. She was saying, Kelsey was saying, what about looking at our data before we started like STEAM programming and comparing it to the data now? But unfortunately, there's just been so much change in the
Mhm.
Georgia Milestones assessment and like how
Even
they,
with science though,
Because do
you
they,
know, like if we took. the
maybe
science
not so
scores
much so with
like,
science.
Even from like 2021, and then
Yeah.
now.
let me ask you on the science assessment, because, you know, I wouldn't know, but are they assessed more like, is it more critical thinking or is it more like
It's more
terms and projects?
content. It's more content, I would
But-
say.
Because my question, part of my question is not that let's find the data right now.
Yeah.
Maybe we can, is there a possibility to think of a plan of like collecting some kind of data? Like,
Well, I will.
or is that too much? Sorry.
Well, no, I will say, what's coming to mind is, these big high stakes assessments, only go so far, but we definitely have a process. Ms. Brennan and Ms. Schumacher have a process for tracking students' performance on CERs, which is a writing prompt or a written response that follows claim, evidence, reasoning. And so those are scored on rubrics. And the idea is the better you get at being a thinker, right? Critical thinker, problem solver, the more well-versed you are in the engineering design process, the better you can respond to something by making a claim, providing evidence and giving reasoning.
And we do go through the steps and of CER, understanding what it is and teaching them, why, how it doubles back as far as like answering its own question as far as evidence goes. So even kindergarten can kind of on a very basic level understand the concept of how a CER works. But it's just a matter of like, it's language, it's new vocabulary that has to really start becoming normal. Like they're entering a time where the jobs they're going to be in don't exist right now. And so it's like teaching them a new way of thinking to be able to, enter into that new creative technology and all that stuff. So.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll tell you one of my secret connections, because I think part of the gain from STEAM PBL is like hands-on experience and this bigger thinking. If we could track some, I feel like any data we can track on how they're improving on that could also benefit or tell us about the whole child. Like I feel like when you have hands-on experience, it's like a more sense of achievement and sense of pride in children in doing the project. So that could be a way to track how the whole child. Again, this is just.
Yeah,
maybe
I mean,
a-
we have to think about.
Like, if there is some metric that we're going after for the whole child development and their interpersonal skills and their ability to have face-to-face conversations, lower their anxiety. Like if there's already that kind of metric, I wonder if you could determine if the PBL was improving those scores because it creates that team.
Exactly.
And it's a sense of ownership too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, collaboration, yeah.
And they work on it for an awfully long time. So the
Absolutely.
sense of pride at the end of it, is huge.
Yeah, that's why I was asking if we could quantify it, that would tie us and like give us, like that would maybe be a more, I don't know if it would be going the SIP or not, but it would be part of the.
Like maybe doing
Like a pre and post.
like a pre and post self group self-rubric type
Self-reflection.
of, yeah.
Those get hard. I feel like some
Yeah,
kids
'cause
are.
that's a lot
yeah.
of just like qual data, and I don't know if that would necessarily be beneficial.
But we can talk to
Sorry.
so I'm on the STEAM advisory committee with Ms. Schumacher. We can talk to her.
Oh,
She's working on trying to get certification.
Yep.
So maybe she can say with her certifications, if there's some assessments, quantitative assessments about how the rollout of that program is working at that individual school in any kind of mark.
I'm sure, yeah.
That
Yeah.
they're looking at whenever they're certifying the school as a STEAM program.
Yeah, I'm sure they're.
If you email it, I know we're going to do a visit with the school on Monday. That could probably be a question that she could. propose
Good
to that
idea. Are
school
you going?
I'm
Okay,
going.
yeah, I'm trying to remember to ask that.
It was that D.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See what that school.
Ask them and what metric they're using to track their progress of this. What's in park?
I was also gonna say just in terms, like, so, yeah, it's helpful,
Mhm.
by the way, I think that's awesome, and it's, and also, like, do we have aggregate, like. So recognizing that grades are always different by teacher and by student, and that you would never want to pull out any particular kid or anything, but as an aggregate whole, like, the teachers are the people who are not seeing them just on test day, they're seeing them every single day. Like, do we have aggregate data on like the grades our students are receiving?
I mean, yes, I can. pull
Like,
it.
but like as a tracking metric of to see like, are we improving in that way? Like, are these kids are moving forward? Like, are they getting better and just like their individual, like not individual, like because it's so
Yeah.
hard individually.
Yeah.
But like some kids don't test well.
True.
Some kids
Oh, yeah,
like
yeah.
are really great in class and then they have bad math scores.
Mhm.
Like, and like getting a, like, not as like the end all be all, but as a separate data point of
Mhm.
Like formative.
like informative of like, how are our teachers assessing these kids or this grade or this, like, as a whole, not as an individual, but like as a whole. Like, I feel like is an important part of like what they're doing, both on an academic level, but also on an SEL level, like too, like. The teachers are the ones seeing their students develop throughout the year
Mhm.
and getting like their data aggregated so that we can like be like, okay, what are our teachers seeing? And like, is that improving or not? Like, I mean,
That's a good question.
So you're
Trying
speaking
to
on
think how we
something
could do
more
that.
than just our end of unit assessments, or will we do their map assessment? Because they do the map because they do the map 3 times a year.
But then there's
Speaking
also
from a
unit
kindergarten, right,
assessments.
and you have unit assessments. Speaking from a kindergarten perspective, we do G kids all year, so technically
True.
throughout the year, that's an ongoing assessment. So,
What he's talking about is like G kids
G-Kids,
for all
yeah.
grade levels.
Yeah.
So G kids, the Georgia
there's
kindergarten.
yeah.
mhm. Yeah, that's something like that.
It's a listen long acronym. Basically, it's a year-long assessment where there's all these developmental markers that the
Mhm.
teachers have to, excuse me, check off that a child is
Yeah.
typically
Well, no,
developing. Yeah.
like we do like, as a parent, you get a report card.
Yeah, but I mean, that would be
Like,
more
that's, like,
specific and
even
more,
More specific.
yeah.
Mhm.
it's interesting.
Because that one is more so it's separate from their grades. It is just saying specifically to the baseline content that they should have coming in, or by the time they get to mid-year, by the time they get to the end of the year, that progression, and it tracks it. However, the only thing is there isn't the social and emotional piece that you're speaking of. Very little of that is there now because they did do away with the BAS, and on those assessments now, it only checks for things like similar to the report card, self-control.
Right, like
responding-
conduct grades,
But
yeah.
not
it's not the same.
necessarily,
Yes.
and that is even more specific with pre-K uses as well with the Brigance, which monitors their ability to self-regulate. And though that more, they have more emotional than than what you even have now, the regular gen ed.
But all
So there's-
grade levels have some sort of behavior. Right, that they're.
Essentially.
Yeah, quarterly,
Yes,
quarter,
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
quarter report cards have conduct grades
And
every
they,
quarter.
and they are, there's like 10 or 11 of them or so. I mean, that could be some data that we pulled.
That's true, that's a good idea.
And I know that like what you're talking about is captured in these orange tables where it gets like, filtered down to all the way that individual student.
Mhm.
I think that we can investigate further what you're saying, but from a quantitative standpoint, to make goals, I think it's gonna be hard to
Yeah.
make. Cause those like emotional
That's
grades,
true.
even the letter grades, they're categorical data. We
Mm-hmm.
don't average them, right? So to make some sort of overarching assessment and show growth in them will be hard for us to put into
Mhm.
these little boxes
Mm.
that the district is expecting from
Mhm.
us. But I do think that as a group internal to the school,
Sure.
we can be
Very
looking at
important.
those and we can be reporting on them during these meetings and we can be talking about them contextually. But maybe not it going into one of these
Right,
tiny little boxes kind
Yeah.
of thing, you know, but saying like this is important to us. But when we get down to the quantitative piece, saying we're gonna defer back to the state testing.
it's
as-
easier.
Yeah, it's just easier, absolutely. But I think we've all talked about it a lot,
Mhm.
that it does go down directly to the individual student and like, what do you need today? Yeah, so I think maybe we wanna put in here, which I don't know if I'm gonna be able to edit this slide in real time. But we wanna make some sort of language around the growth. Right?
I would say that that's kind of what I saw as probably in that top section.
Mhm.
The academic achievement section, in addition to
great.
focusing on achievement, just add a priority for growth, right?
So in this foster academic excellence for all,
Mhm.
we can.
Or you can even just
Can
be,
you write it stuff in the
Yeah,
notes and
yeah.
then we can add it to the slides for.
You
next
do
time?
something like increased emphasis on growth and developing metrics to measure that. Or
Well-
something that would develop like means for
Do
measuring.
you have the metrics on the slide?
yeah, the SGPs, I would say, but I would say even if we don't want to add a new priority, maybe just be more, add some
Yeah, more
specificity to number one. Use data to inform instruction so that students are
Specifically. looking
are
at the-
achieving, are achieving and growing at high rates.
For both achievement
And
and
growth.
high rate growth.
Yeah,
or something.
Yeah. Cause we have, that's the thing with Maryland, we always have high achievers, but like now we're shifting that to like, yes, we want to keep kids achieving high, but we also want them to grow.
Or achievement with a focus on growth. or
Yeah,
something like
Yeah,
that.
with a focus on growth. I like that too.
Use data to inform instruction so that students,
Use data to inform instructions.
students,
So what do we
are
say?
high achieving with
Are-
a focus
With a
on growth.
focus on achievement, or with like,
Use data to inform instruction and focus on achievement.
instruction for growth with a focus on, or it's with.
It's words,
With a
first
focus
ChatGPT.
on achievement
And growth.
And growth. I know,
and like growth.
They're both, same.
Yeah, something like that, but I think achievement and growth, like being in there are both important.
So that's, so that, so take out so that students
Inform instruction for achievement
with a focus on achievement and growth.
with a focus on growth. Yeah. Something like that. I think it's important.
Both, say both achievement and growth. Okay.
Lindley, you are still on, feel free to chime in. If we have any other additions here, now would be the time. You're on mute, Lindley.
Yes, I'm still here for now. No, that all sounds good.
I don't know why I can't hear her.
This is on there.
I hear you. I'm not muted. Text you.
You hear us, Lindley?
Yep.
Yeah, she can. Okay. Where is it? Are you there?
Yeah.
Say something, Lindley. Did she say something?
No, not quite.
Oh, there you go, there you go. Try again, Lindley.
I hear you. Yeah, I don't know what's happening.
But it's working. We heard you earlier.
Weird. Oh, well, it's fine. All good.
She said she's good. Gave a thumbs up.
All right, try last time.
I can still hear you, but I don't know if you can hear me. But we're good.
Okay, so sorry about that, Lindley. We got your thumbs up though. We texted it and we heard her at the beginning, right?
She was on there. Charlie's Angels.
The voice in the middle of the table.
I know a
It only
lot of
works
this
in-
is like captured in the building and culture part. But do we wanna have like a specific goal related to increasing? The like milestone achievements of diverse students based on like the previous slides, or do we feel, like, is that on there?
That would be the fourth one, I would say, increase the achievement for lower performing subgroups in the
Okay,
school by
okay,
measured
yeah,
on
okay, yeah,
GMAS, yeah.
Sorry.
GMAS is the same as EOG, two different acronyms, same thing.
small letters.
Well, and
I'm like, I
Lots
feel like
of-
I need to go see the optometrist
yeah,
again.
lots of, lots of
Well,
text.
this slide is particularly tiny. That's why I run through the.
You're on the line.
Yeah, like, you know, you're speaking.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna read through the school strategies now. Full monthly data digs led by administration. Weekly lesson planning and internalization led by instructional coaches,
Mhm.
which I think really speaks to like going to the individual child.
Mhm.
Created a new equity, diversity and inclusion committee on the PTA.
Mhm.
Provide equity and anti-bias training for all staff members. Engage students in weekly STEAM activities, science fair, science night. Which I think the STEAM night is tomorrow.
Mhm. Mhm.
Spelling bee, math family night, inclusive schools week, no place for hate week, Red Ribbon week. Black History Celebration, Girls on the Run, Leap After School Activities, and Helen Ruffin Reading Bowl.
You absolutely have to include it in Hamlin's Pet Club.
I know, I'm like, we only need to make that a little shorter.
I want to wordsmith it a little.
And
bit.
change the-
Yeah, there's a lot.
Exhaustive list.
So you can
No,
really,
it's not.
that's really more, if you make it more
It's separate.
multicultural, like there's a way to state that it's more multicultural or cultural representative activities versus,
Mhm.
because some of that falls under that same
does.
umbrella of.
Yeah, because it's Hispanic month, every
Yeah.
month, so that's like, that,
Yeah.
We had a lot of celebrations,
That's
yeah,
actually 2 months.
I know, it's so confusing, why did they do it like that?
Scott, can you make a note that we're gonna edit, what is
Number
that?
3.
Blue number 3.
Yeah,
Engage students.
I would say in multicultural and interdisciplinary activities, both during the school day and after school.
With a focus on STEAM integration.
Nice. Oh, Scott, were you getting it?
sorry, I'm getting there.
Let's try it again. Let's try it
Yeah,
again.
say your-
Engage students in multicultural and interdisciplinary activities, both during the school day and after school.
With
With
a
a
focus
focus
on STEAM integration.
Mhm.
That's it.
I mean,
That's what
yeah.
I'm doing right now.
We've been doing a lot of.
Hearing that.
We've been doing a lot of chat GPT, girl. You've got a lot of, we're getting good. Move over AI.
Getting me all steamy.
Yeah, move over AI.
Very strong strike.
Oh, the AI companion. Yeah, that's true, that's true.
Okay, so administer best, so we might want to change that.
We need to just, yeah.
I'm gonna read the whole thing though, just in case somebody can't see. Administer best to screen for students who need additional support, implement small group and individual counseling sessions.
Mhm.
Dedicate 15 protected minutes for morning meeting and second step lessons that focus on social and emotional.
We still do that.
Yeah, you just need to have the first
Yeah.
sentence. The other two sentences are happening.
And this would be, sorry, this would be separate and apart from kids with like IEPs and stuff like
Oh,
that.
yeah.
This is just like
The whole class.
the
Yeah.
whole class.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Maryland Foundation grants must be screened and approved. Additional support staff, hired nurse, elderly intervention teachers, full-time substitutes, etc. Do we want to edit that?
I think that can come off. I don't see that as a school strategy.
If it
Or-
doesn't-
Just delete number 2.
if
Or-
it doesn't come off, it needs a parentheses at the end.
Yeah, I think just take it on.
3 is provide professional learning opportunities to empower and equip teachers to work with diverse population.
Should be.
I mean,
Populations.
Yeah, because of diverse, that's very. And what
I
is
mean-
that? What, you know what I mean?
Equipping equitably aligned school resources with the MLE mission and vision. I really would rather that say provide professional learning opportunities to empower and equip teachers to. I would say like to provide STEAM centered instruction or like.
Something
the
like that.
I
integrate-
think we can keep diverse population, like, we could say like, and provide STEAM centered resources consistent with the prior. goal.
Sure, with the
I mean,
with the
I-
diverse
like-
population,
Yeah.
yeah.
Like, I mean, or like, both diverse population and STEAM, like, they
Yeah,
can be separate, like, but like to. I mean, yes, we need to provide those opportunities for the STEAM stuff, especially if that's gonna be the focus. But like, I don't wanna take out the diverse population.
How about if we say provide professional learning opportunities to empower and equip teachers to engage diverse populations in STEAM centered learning?
But I want them to engage everybody in STEAM centered learning,
Right.
so I wanted to say something more, I mean, this is me talking, I'm saying,
Differentiate.
like,
in
to
regards
both,
to
to
Our
both.
STEAM signature program.
Like, I think it's just say like to both. Provide STEAM centered learning opportunities and work with diverse populations.
I like that.
Like, it's just like to make them two
Yeah.
separate things
Yeah.
that we're gonna provide opportunities.
Yeah,
for.
sounds good.
That's- I mean,
To both provide.
it's like
STEAM-centered
everybody
learning
should have the STEAM
opportunities.
centered.
Cause I think, I
And
think,
for
too, I
diverse
think I see what you're saying,
populations.
cause that's probably, that was tailored to what the previous goal and what we were talking about with the data, so that's probably why the diverse population. was included.
Yeah, provide.
For that
professional learning
growth.
But I
opportunities
wanna keep it in.
Yeah. To both engage students, in STEAM centered learning opportunities. Engage students. In. And take out provide. And work with diverse populations, great. Mhm.
And is there? Do we feel like the provide professional learning opportunities? And equip teachers is really embracing and encompassing everything that we're doing, because I know we have in-school training, like
mhm.
Misty Cox's out of school training
Yeah.
right now. Do we feel like this is, reflecting our current strategy of how we're getting our teachers ready to be in a classroom?
I think yes, because I think that really professional learning opportunities is a big umbrella. And I mean, you could call a sit-down planning session a
Mhm.
professional learning opportunity, right? It doesn't necessarily have to look like an outside conference. So we could reword it to make it that a little bit more clear.
Yeah, because I think the based on strengths part is what's kind of be a little question mark for me, because then it's. Like, you're looking at me individually and then you're
Mhm.
saying this is a professional development that you.
Oh,
see my
she's still talking about
strengths.
number 3.
But we are,
Oh, I'm still right here.
or, sorry,
Oh,
we're
but-
going.
Yeah,
My apologies.
if we do want to go down there, it needs to go there for creating a system of support. Maybe I can read those out loud. System of accountability for school-based leaders, sorry. And then leadership and professional learning opportunities for all staff members based on strengths. Okay, so this language like overlaps with this
Mhm.
language here, learning opportunities. And I can see what you're saying, like, how are we assessing the teachers to see where their strengths are? I know, like, when this was written. Previously, when we were discussing it last year, there was a focus on making sure that all the teachers had some level of GATE training, because we had such a high percentage of GATE
Mhm.
students. And so, like, there was some in-school, like, training.
Yeah.
Things, and like, how many of y'all, like 12 of y'all went for GATE training?
Oh, yeah.
And you
The
brought
one
in
that-
that.
So Katie, is that where the diverse population may have come into as well? Because if you're thinking about GATE and thinking about
Mhm.
just not even just students of color, but more like specific, the big umbrella of diversity.
Yeah.
Maybe that's where that,
Styles,
mhm.
yeah.
That's probably, that makes more
Yeah,
sense.
yeah,
That's good
yeah,
to
yeah,
know,
yeah.
because that makes more sense as to why that would be in there, in that way. Okay.
I don't know what based on strengths adds to that sentence, honestly.
Well, basically, that's like talking about differentiation, like we were talking about for students, how we want to differentiate the content we give students based on what they've mastered and what they still need to learn. I think I'm assuming that was speaking to making sure that teachers have professional learning opportunities that meet their needs. Maybe not say based on strengths, but like meet their needs would be more what we're going
Yeah.
for.
Can you make a note of that? To delete based on strengths and instead say meet their needs.
Just like I'm sure
Needs
too,
and
that a lot of
interests,
this like,
maybe.
comes.
And
from,
meet
right?
them that needs and
Interest,
interests.
yeah.
We were talking about retention, right? And school support.
Right,
Yeah.
and I'm sure like a lot of this. is Union based.
Unfortunately, none of that in Georgia.
Oh, really?
No, no union,
They have
no
a page,
collective
though.
bargaining. You have a page, good old page, yeah. Page.
You can
No
join.
comments. All right.
No bargaining.
I wonder if instead of saying provide professional learning opportunities, you could just start the sentence with empower and equip
Yeah,
on number
that's all
3.
you really need.
This one here.
Mhm. Just say empower and equip teachers to provide STEAM-centered learning opportunities and work with diverse populations.
Is there a different word that we can use for work?
Wait, say that again.
Is there a different word that we could use for work, or do you think work is the?
Engage.
Engage.
Something, yeah, something that's
Yeah.
more like enriching or
Yeah.
enrich or something like, you know.
Empower and equip teachers to
Yeah.
both engage students in STEAM-centered opportunities and did you say meet the needs of? And
Service,
serve
yeah.
diverse populations, great.
Then you make the whole thing back.
Yeah, empower and equip teachers to both engage students in STEAM-centered opportunities and serve diverse populations.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Oh, yeah, you put steam and then and so then,
Sorry, I'm not trying to backtrack at the, like that's like a statement of principle to me rather than like an action item. Like, what are we doing to do that?
Wait, state that statement
Providing-
again.
Like, can you read the whole thing back real quick? Sorry.
it's number 3.
As rewritten, sorry.
Empower and equip teachers to both engage students in STEAM-centered opportunities and serve diverse populations.
I mean, I'm happy
Through
with that, it's
professional
fine, but like empower and equip, like doesn't actually say what we're doing.
Through.
It's just like, I mean, it's like a very.
Right.
I think that we were trying to get rid of the copy paste of professional learning opportunities on number 3 in the orange, and number 2 also references professional learning opportunities. You know what I'm saying?
Read it one more time, sorry. I
As
feel
opposed
phrase
to
that.
Empower.
this being a strategy.
Empower and equip teachers to both engage students in STEAM-centered opportunities and serve diverse populations.
Just sounds more like a principle than a strategy.
I don't disagree with that. I'm trying to think how we can make it more specific without referencing professional learning.
STEAM-centered curricula
And
through,
resources.
and
Or like provide resources.
professional learning opportunities. I would take out the.
Or like if you just said provide resources too,
Because that is a fact.
and then fill in the rest of like, we're like, the goal is that we're actually going to give you the resources. Like that's our strategy.
Like
is
Miss
that we'll-
Steve needs shaving cream for her science.
Oh, yeah,
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 it really does.
yeah,
So like, if you just
yeah.
put provide resources
Yes,
too
that's
in
it, yep.
front of it,
Yep.
then I think it's more of an actual strategy rather than a priority.
That's great.
When you have shaving cream, you're doing your
Listen, voices in motion.
Great.
That's exactly what this does.
This slide here. So now we have made sure our SIP goals are reflected in our strategic priorities.
Mhm.
We'll take the meeting minute notes and fill them in here. Updates to the strategic plan, which I feel like we've been kind of
Yeah.
changing
Yeah.
right now.
Mhm.
It didn't seem like we wanted to change anything in that center column. But let's just go back to the slide where we prioritized things. It's a good summary of what our plan is. And see if there's anything that we want to rearrange from highest to lowest. The text is larger, so I'm need to actually read it.
I hate ranking priorities.
I know.
I know, it's like everything.
I know, because I feel so bad about whatever's at the bottom. Because like, that's very important, you know, like number 6 is very important. Um,
Because without number 6, no one.
number 1 through 5 not gonna happen. I know.
I'd go 1, 6, 3, 2, 4, 5.
Why do we have to rank? Why can't we just say top 6?
We don't have to.
Why don't we just delete the higher to lower?
I know.
And like insert schools priorities, I mean, unless this is something that the district requires, that it be listed this way, but.
At this meeting, we don't have to change this priority, but if we want to add any priority, or if we want to add anything to the priority list, now would be the time to do it. It didn't sound like we did from our conversation. It sounded like we felt like this was all,
Yeah,
after we changed
Just
number
more
one.
specific on number 1, yeah.
I'm just circling it back to make sure that we can put a bow on it and call it done.
I'm fine with the ranking.
yeah.
It's great.
Strategic planning will help you fully uncover your available options, set priorities for them, and define the methods to achieve them. Okay, so this is kind of gonna talk about where we're going next meeting. We have a meeting in December. And at that meeting, we're gonna take action to vote on any updates to our strategic plan. So specifically the language that we just came to today. Right. We are gonna go through the principals report. Cluster advisory team report might not happen since Lindley had to drop off early. And then we will have time for a public comment. There is one person hanging on to Zoom and hopefully our audio works. Do you want to go ahead and do your principals?
Yeah, sure. All right, so I'm gonna keep this short and sweet. The security grant update. We recently received a little bit, I want to say a little bit more guidance around how we can use the $45,000 we're receiving from the state. However, the guidance that we received about how and where we can spend that money, none of the buckets that were provided on that list were how we were intending to spend the money here at Mary Lynn. Also, I feel like it's a little bit of a moving target because we are developing a partnership with the Educator School Safety Network to bring we're getting an SRO. So thank you for bringing that up. So the district is paying for us to have a school resource officer. That was a decision by Dr. Johnson. I've already asked for somebody, hopefully they'll make it happen and she'll be here full time. I've asked for Officer Key, who's here in the mornings now, to join us. She actually worked with me last year at VHE. She was our school resource officer at Virginia Highland last year, so I worked with her all year. She's great. She loves kids. It's great. So I've asked for her. I'm begging. So we're going to get the school resource officer covered. But the idea around the $45,000 is we have this school safety network that we're trying to partner with to bring professional learning to our teachers so that we can just have a better understanding of like what we can do to make our school a safer place. Not necessarily like evacuation routes, like less of the technical and more of like the reality of the situation, like the mindset, the preparedness piece. It was a recommendation from Paideia. They had this group come in and talk to the school. So we found out this money. Then I said, well, we would use that money to release some of the funds for our school counselor so that this $45,000 then would be released to us so that we could do what we needed to do with it. So it's a little bit unencumbered, but now we have the Educator School Safety Network. So I'm like, wait, should we use the $45,000 to pay for that? So I say this all to say it's not spent. We're still thinking about how to spend it. And this is money that we're going to get every year. So we have to decide if we need to make an investment that we will then make every year, or if it's like a capital improvement investment. So still kind of figuring that out. We have until the end of the year, or the end of the calendar year, so until December 20th to decide. But there's just, the money can be used for a lot of things. And there's a link right here to the Georgia DOE guidance. I'm not going to pull up. You feel free to look at it, but I mean, the money can really be used for many, many things. And I don't want to just spend the money to spend it. Unfortunately, I feel like that's what I know. But, like, that's what's happening is I feel like a lot of schools are like, oh, I have $45,000. Let's get new windows. When like, are new windows really the best use of that money, right? So I'm just kind of, I haven't.
Does it allow for programming like safety around guns and weapons? and
Absolutely.
That kind of
It
thing?
could,
Or-
but it's just the heavy lift of finding, right? Because all the vendors they sent us, it's like a list of 6 vendors. It's like security cameras, new doors, bulletproof film, and like, metal detectors, stuff that we don't really need at Mary Lynn. So I'm just trying to figure out how to like go about.
No, but like at the end of the day, like if there's. Like if it's the end of the year and we haven't spent it. Like,
Oh, no, we don't spend it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, we can spend it. We are.
Sure.
But just trying to figure out exactly what that will look like.
Maybe we could talk about it in the staff meeting.
We should, or expanded lead
Yeah.
meeting. I would love to have everyone look at the list that's linked here and
That'd
just
be a good
decide
Lead team
lead team
meeting.
meeting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then they can roll it out to the team.
Mhm.
Yeah, and then we can do it
teams.
individually,
Mhm.
like talk about it, so that way, like, by December, like,
Sure,
starting like first
sure.
of December, like, once we get beyond Thanksgiving break,
Mhm.
because I'm sure y'all gonna have a meeting, like, pretty
Yes.
soon, right? Then, yeah, once we
Is
come
it-
back, then we could have something.
Mhm.
Is
As
it
an
more like
idea.
a consultant, which I think is actually probably the best use of it one way or the other,
Mhm.
like. Would it have to be like? The training be completed by December
No.
or that you just pay it?
You literally just have to
Basically,
like create the
have it-
requisition by
Yeah.
December. So yeah, you just have to invoice it, like create a PO by December. So nothing has to actually happen other than like the plan has to be set in
I think that,
motion.
Like for our school. Like,
Well, and
we have a
that's what
pretty
the-
nice building.
Sure.
We don't need metal detectors
Yeah.
for real.
And
like.
the ESS
Well, that's why
is a
teachers, I
consultant.
think, would be a really good group
Like,
to
what do you-
Right.
consult,
Yeah.
because it's what, is our
Yeah.
second home.
Well, and so the ESS
We're here for
is a
9 hours
consulting
a day.
company, right? They're school safety consultants. And then I think that one of the tasks they would perform with our staff is an audit of our staff, right? So it's like cart before the horse. Like I would love to get this team in for them to do this audit and tell us what we need. So then maybe we can have a little bit more clarity on how to spend $45,000.
Right.
But
A
then what
year
if I want to
person,
use
definitely.
$45,000 to pay for that? It just is very, you know what I'm saying? So talking about potentially the foundation funding this initial partnership with the school safety network, they could come in and do the comprehensive school safety audit, and then they could potentially give us a clear picture, evidence-based, right, picture of what the best use of this money would be.
And then it could probably help you create a plan where it might be step
Exactly.
1 is this year, then step 2, especially if they're giving it to you for.
Yes, and we're
Yeah.
talking about that at the foundation meeting on Friday. So hopefully we'll have some answers.
Well, and it's ongoing too, like once they're like.
Well,
Set up, like having.
Yeah,
Yeah, but like maybe at some point it transitions to like having a safety officer around or like something else that they're paying for, like if, because it's yearly, like
Yeah.
at some point, we're not gonna like have. Hard programs to pay
Yeah.
for that.
yeah,
I mean,
right. We're doing something else, shift the cost. Just my last update, just to keep it short and simple, is we were honored with 3 recognitions from the Georgia DOE related to our milestones achievement in English language arts. 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade got an award. We are literacy leaders in the state. Proficiency awards in 3rd and 4th grade, and then 5th grade received an outstanding award, which is just one of the top schools in the state. Yay, it's Skoyajian. So, and we were the only school recognized that got 3 awards.
Nice.
So really exciting. Just really proud of our work. So that was really fun to go. You see Miss Boyajian went with me and Miss Fuller and Miss Spalding up there. And that's the state superintendent, Richard Woods, and then our new superintendent, Dr. Johnson on the left. So just wanted to shout us out. Very cool.
By the way, the security update link you have on the
Mhm.
slides, I don't think I have access to it.
Communication, it looks like we did.
It asks me to log into SharePoint, like APA SharePoint,
I need to get it. I'll fix it. I'll have to link.
but maybe you check it, like
I want to be
it's APA SharePoint.
It's just because of the way I got it, like, it's short, because it's just, it's a document that's actually linked to the Georgia DOE.
Oh, man.
Close to finishing out
Oh.
our website, our,
Here.
There are no announcements from the district at this time, but do you have an announcement
I
that you'd
don't.
like to make?
But I'm so sorry. I was gonna speak. I had one thing to say about the CAT meeting. I know Lindley's not here, but I was there too. So if I can backtrack, just one thing, the Midtown Cluster Advisory Team decided to create a special committee on community engagement. Which I am serving on is a strong term. I am like in an advisory capacity because they really just needed a school staff member to be on it. So there's just one person kind of, well, Deanne, who has kids at Howard and maybe Midtown. She used to have kids at Morningside. Anyway, she's kind of spearheading the committee around community engagement and bringing parents from elementary, middle, and high together to share concerns. We're just kind of figuring out what those community engagement sessions should focus on. One idea that we're going to bring to the table is around assessment and how assessment is done in APS. Less so high stakes assessment and more so internal assessments used as a district, fidelity, validity, all of that. And then another big bucket was school safety, right? So bringing folks together. And I think maybe talking about the security grant during a community engagement session such as that would be a good opportunity. So that's what's going on behind the scenes for the cluster advisory team.
You know what? I have an idea.
Yeah.
I was thinking about another school. I was looking at the badge.
Mhm.
Didn't we used to have a badge with the visitor's actual picture on it?
It usually does print. You didn't get a picture?
No, this year they don't print. Last year I did print. They were terrible photos.
Yeah, well, it takes a photo of you.
No, I mean, not,
If you have taken a photo one time, it'll save it.
yeah, so it's not a photo every time. It
No.
used to be that you take a photo every single time.
Interesting. I didn't
I
realize
did
that.
that-
I know it said like smile.
Yeah. No, it definitely.
It's definitely like-
I never even looked up and didn't realize there's an actual picture. That might be a setting that we'll look into that. I don't know
Yeah.
why, because it definitely printed the faces last year, at VHE as well, so.
I mean, I'm not particularly about it, but yeah.
Yeah. And the people at the front desk do a very good job making sure everybody does get a badge, even if you're just like, oh, you're percent,
Mhm.
do it anyway.
Right,
Okay.
unless you're dropping off a water bottle.
You've never had to drop off a water bottle, have you? No one's ever forgotten that at your house.
Okay, so we do have 10 minutes for public comment. Carolyn Barnett, you're the only person of the public. If you'd like to come off of mute and see if it will work, if you have any comments.
So she actually works for the Go Team office,
She does.
I think, okay.
Okay, so hearing none, we're gonna move towards adjournment. If we can have a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Right down.
Sorry, excellent. Let's do this. All in favor? Okay,
Who had our second?
I think Kelsey had the first and Addison had the second. Excellent, we're done here.
all right, we will have a meeting in December. I don't remember
Thank you.
when.
Yeah, we have
Yeah.
It's 11.
It's December 11th.
December 11th. All right here, December 11th. That's also our spelling bee. Look at that.
And then, yeah, I know that we've already adjourned, but prior to that meeting, take these meeting minutes, I'll put them into the slides. Denise will put them publicly available.